Hey guys, welcome back for some more tutorials. My name is Magnet, and we're going to be talking about defeating cheese in TvP. Namely, we need to talk about some safe openers and scouting to be sure that you know or rather understand what's going on. And of course, proper unit control as far as defending against these type of things is very important. Mostly we want to try and figure out how we're supposed to identify what's going on, what we can do about it, what are the best decisions when everything is really on the line, because Terran's really one of those races where defending cheese can be quite hard because you have a lot of relatively cheap units in the early game, and if you don't control them all the way they're supposed to be controlled, then you can die pretty easily. So let's take a look at some games and we'll talk about this. This is going to be Bunny versus Naniwa. So we've got this all started up here, and what we're going to see immediately is Naniwa is pulling a probe. So he's going to go for an in-base proxy. You can see him clicking over here. So one really good way to get on top of the cheese is you can see that Bunny actually doesn't really know what's going on. This probe actually walked in before Bunny could actually see it. So this build was perfectly timed out from Naniwa, so he knew that he would get there before this worker would come down. So this is sneaky, and you wouldn't normally expect stuff like this. But even just walking an SCV around your base, maybe at around, I'd say, 2 minutes is a decent way to understand what's going on. You can check that your base is clear. You can check around your natural to make sure all this stuff is clear as well. You could even go down here to make sure that this was clear if you wanted to. Just scouting around early in the game is a good way to prevent getting cheesed if you hit it a lot. Of course, it is fairly rare, but it's good to make sure you know what's going on. So what we're going to see is Naniwa is going to drop a pylon here, and Bunny still has absolutely no idea. Just building his building's kind of weird. Normally you'd want a wall in here, and honestly the wall would actually work out pretty well, because if you got a second depot up and there was, say, a zealot coming out here, and it was chasing his marines, you could walk it on the other side of the wall and wall up, and the zealot wouldn't be able to hit it. So that's one way you could do it. But the other way is really just making sure that you're controlling with your SCVs properly. So this looks like a normal Reaper opener, and that's kind of what these types of builds are supposed to counter. Is Reaper openers typically don't open up with a lot of really strong units, but we'll get to that point once we can figure out what's going on. So Naniwa, even being smart and pooling his zealots because he knows that Bunny hasn't, it's not the time for Bunny to have sent his Reaper out yet. So this is a really well crafted attack. And Bunny really needs to know what's going on in order to react properly. So he's going to send his Reaper out, and now that he knows he has to keep his Reaper back at home, this may be a Marine or it may be something else, but regardless, if you have a Zealot, maybe two in your base, you're going to have to use workers to fight for a little while. So you really need to pull these over there, try to attack and surround whatever is attacking you, especially if it's this early, and then once they take a hit or two, just pull them back to the mineral line so they don't die. We're going to see a little bit of this micro, and of course you'd never want to take damage on your Reaper or your Marines if you can help it. And finally, if you can start building a bunker somewhere to protect your buildings, say one like right here, that'll at least protect your barracks and your command center for quite a while, then you have a place that you can really hide your Marines and stuff in for quite a long time. So we're seeing Bunny pull his Reaper back. I'm going to play most of this on normal, considering a lot of it is about micro. Once he gets an SCV attacked, he just moves it away and moves it over to another mineral line. That's definitely how you want to micro your workers away if you start getting attacked like this. As soon as something gets attacked, just grab it, click on a mineral line, and a mineral patch somewhere, that is, and they'll just walk over there, they'll phase through whatever there is. But Bunny right now should probably be building a bunker here, just to help hold this for the time being. He was saving up for a command center because that kind of is the build. But of course, if he just scouted this out earlier, then he could very easily just have a bunker protecting all of his buildings and his mineral line, and this wouldn't even be an issue. And then eventually he could keep dumping his Marines in and out of the bunker and start killing this building. What we're going to see here is Bunny's just going to do his best to attack with his workers for a little while. He's trying to save the ones that get attacked, so he pulls the hurt one back. Again, he does it again, and he's gotten all this free damage on this Zealot with the Reaper and with a couple of workers. Of course, a couple of workers have died, and if they're proxying inside your base, they have to concede quite a few workers anyway. So he's doing the same thing with this Zealot, is just try to surround it with your SCVs and pull the hurt ones back. Naniwa smartly going after the hurt ones, so you need to definitely find a way to keep those things alive. Now this Zealot is really low. A third Zealot is, or rather, yeah, that's the third Zealot, but a second Zealot's on the field currently is going to be out. This probe being really annoying, picking up a couple of kills. You need to be a little bit careful about that as well. Bunny goes ahead and starts a factory though, because if he has a hard time really pushing this away, things like mines and maybe tanks, but those are a little slow. I'd say mines are probably your best option. Are going to be really good as far as pushing these away, because you could burrow a mine right next to the gateway. If anything pops out of there, it gets killed right away, and your mines are going to be cheaper than basically anything that can be produced off of this gateway. So That's an interesting little decision here from Bunny, but he's also dropping this secondarily because he already knows that he's held this. Considering he lost just a couple of workers, you can see he's lost 6. But again, the Protoss does have to sacrifice quite a few workers in order to make this work. The Protoss is definitely ahead from something like this, and you can't just think that, oh, I held this first part off, that's going to be it, right? No. This is going to change a lot, because this could be multiple stages worth of cheese that you have to react to. So even though you might push the first one off, the follow-up is going to be what's really scary. So right now, he's just trying to kill the Zealot with his Reaper. He's trying to unpower the gateway, which it does unfortunately finish. Gonna head right back up here and see what he can get done. Now that the Marines are out, he just needs to conserve as many SCVs as possible. So this looks like, you're thinking, wait, if this is about holding cheese, then why are we seeing Bunny get killed by this? You can see the worker count does favor Naniwa by a little bit, and he's lost quite a bit, 7 workers. But at the same time, he stopped this gateway. Back in Naniwa's base, his build is a little bit behind. His cybernetics core is just now getting started. And there is a Twilight Council on the way, so you definitely do need to get active with your Reaper back out, on the map and figure out what your opponent is doing. So he's going to send his Reaper down here, and he needs to see this blink coming because this is going to be the follow-up cheese. It could be a straight-up gateway attack, it could be blink, and this is most definitely going to be a one-base blink type of play. So the Reaper definitely needs to see that at all costs. So the Reaper's going to come in here, going to check for a Nexus, nothing seen. Going to keep scouting, going to grab a second little probe over here if he can. I don't know what that ping was for, but so the Reaper comes in here, he's going to see the Twilight Council, and it is being chrono boosted, so by basically every likely scenario, this is going to be blink based upon what he's seen. So now this is all about defending blink, and it changes into a different type of game. We've talked a lot about defending blink in the past, so we're not going to rehash what we've done before. If you have problems with blink by itself, then you can check out the other video for it. There's a link down in the comments for it. But this was basically to show that even though you might have taken some damage to the cheese, that doesn't mean that you're dead. You can continue to play on a normal game, and you can start to respond to the blink, or rather whatever else is going to be following it up, whether it's a gateway all-in, or if it's multiple barracks, you're going to have to start worrying about, or rather thinking about things like bunkers to start to hold that stuff off. But in this case, he knows it's blink, so he just starts a tank, and tanks are great against blink. So knowing that there's a follow-up and double-checking with a Reaper or something is going to be very vital to making sure you're reacting to this properly. So that's about all we really need to see in the first game. Let's check out a couple more that are going to be a little different. And when I say cheese in this matchup, it doesn't exclusively mean like proxy gates, because cheese can come in all shapes and sizes. Something as similar as even just like a 4-gate can be considered a cheese because the Protoss has to win with that, or else they are way, way behind, barring some really weird scenario where maybe they decide not to attack as hard, but that's just kind of their own fault. So what we're going to see is Bomber versus Alicia. Bomber is very well known to getting cheesed a lot because he actually does not scout very much. So I can't stress enough that just scouting around your base and scouting your opponent regularly and often is going to be the best way to understand what's going on as far as your opponent. So we're going to basically watch this from Bomber's point of view and kind of half-heartedly pretend we don't really know what's going on, but we definitely do from the production tab here. So we'll just pretend that doesn't exist, and we'll play from the mindset of Bomber. He's just going to go with a Reaper expansion, just like we were going to see in the last game. He's going to start his Reaper, and you can see he's getting his orbital as well, second depot, everything's on a normal timing. And he should have enough for a command center here very soon, but this is going to be something that will incite cheese. So it's not as if he's just being cheesed right away. This type of play is just an engineering bay block, and this is just to prevent the Protoss from getting a Nexus before making any units. This is a really standard thing, but something that it could force the Protoss to do is they might decide, you know what, if you're going to do that to me, then I'm just going to cheese you and hope that you mess up and die. That's actually a pretty common reaction to stuff like this. So if you're one of those players that eBay blocks, you definitely do need to be prepared for a lot of one-base, really tech-based aggression. And you can see now that he's being eBay blocked, Alicia's just going to go ahead and start his second gas and start transitioning into something else. So Bomber coming back down here, continuing to build more and more on the engineering bay. He's going to get it as far as possible without finishing it, and he's just going to cancel it. But this will incite a cheese here from Alicia. It's going to cause a reaction that's very strong, and it's really up to Bomber to figure that out and follow up scout with his Reaper over and over to be sure that he understands what's going on. So now you know that this is dead, but you don't know if this is going to be a Nexus here. You don't know if it's going to be more gateways. You don't know what this is going to be. And you need to follow that up, and that's why you open up with this Reaper, is to double check. You could also try and scan and just save a scan and don't drop a mule at some point, but that's a little risky because if you miss your scan and say they place their gateways like down here or something and you don't have your Reaper, then that's going to be pretty troublesome. So you need to double check and make sure you understand what's going on if you decide to eBay block or do some cute stuff down here to start off the game. So the funny thing here is that there's a probe in Bomber's base and Bomber has no idea about it because Alicia has hidden it perfectly. So Bomber right now is just trying to figure out what's going on. He sends the Reaper back up and there's no nexus. If they clear your engineering bay and there's no nexus, that's going to be a big red flag as far as what this is supposed to mean. So what Alicia was trying to do is he was trying to go ahead and warp into Bomber's main base. He is putting a nexus down behind this, but if you just flat out stop a 4-gate and don't take any damage, then you can check the worker counts. You're ahead by a couple, but you're going to have way better production because you have mules that you can drop. The Protoss is still only basically going to be on one nexus for another couple minutes. And this is the type of situations where if you can catch these before they even develop, it'll basically end the game. So up at the front, if you ever have to defend these with bunkers, you definitely do need to know what's going on and pull your SCVs in advance to repair this. And then back on the other side, if they try to warp in on a pylon that you're shooting, you can just target down individual units that are being warped in, and that'll expend their warp in and force them to lose the unit at the same time. So that's kind of what we're seeing here. But eventually, and especially early on, if you can get it, well, Alicia just says he's dead, but if you can get it down to just a handful of units, it's better just to pull your SCVs and use all of your units to try and kill this off faster than it can really build up. The idea here is that Protoss units are really expensive, and losing units when there's only 4 units, that's like a ton of money invested. And if you can squash these faster than they can develop, then that's going to be the best way you're going to hold this. So Alicia just tried to be cute after the eBay block and tried to get a pylon into main, but fortunately enough, Bomber saw it on time. He did have the bunker at the front that he could repair and was just able to shut that down. And Alicia knows how far behind he is. This isn't a quick GG or something that was unwarranted. He is way, way behind because Bomber has full saturation on 2 bases. Alicia has no tech and he's behind in economy. You can't really get behind in any other way. So lastly, let's just take a look at one more quick replay. I should also mention that cheesing in this matchup from the Protoss end is actually fairly rare. So there's not a whole lot of replays to look at, but let's take a look at MC versus MMA. This is going to be a much different type of cheese, and it's going to be much later in the game. So we've seen basically proxy gateways, we've seen a gateway all-in. This time we're going to see a tech-based all-in, and Minchol, as his ID says, but his name is actually MC. He's going to go for a Stargate all-in off of, I'm not sure if it's 1 or 2 bases, but either way, it's very much all-in, and we can categorize it as a cheese just because they have to win with that attack or else they are dead. So MC just grabbing up all this stuff, and more importantly, we need to focus on MMA. But this isn't actually going to hit for a little while, so we can't afford to just skip through most of this. Once again, Reaper opener, this is not uncommon, and there's a reason that basically every Terran does it. Start their command center as soon as the Reaper leaves because their minerals should line up properly. But MMA really just needs to know what's going on. So note that he's being very smart with his Reaper. As soon as he sends it out, he checks all around his base. His map vision is already enormous because he decided to scout everywhere to double check that he's going to be safe from cheese. So if you look at MMA's vision, he has seen everything down here. He's seen everything up in this gold base area. If there was a proxy anywhere, he would know all about it. And that's just because he took the time to scout out with his SCV, and he took the time to scout out with the Reaper. And the amount of games you're going to win against cheese because you do stuff like that is going to be huge. So you can't really understate that. And more importantly, this Reaper is really just for scouting information as a whole, whether that's to start off the game or whether it's a little bit later. Either way, it's going to be worth it. And especially you need to check out as far as the maps, because getting a Reaper in on this map is going to be a little bit hard, but at least he did jump up there. I think he saw far in enough to see that there's no nexus, so he could be a little bit worried, but you can double check on the gold to verify that it is here. So let's go ahead and fast forward a little bit. And this is going to be a Stargate all-in, by the way. So these are really rare, depending on where you play, I guess. They're fairly common in some instances, but there are a lot of Protosses that have done a lot with this type of builds, because not a lot of Terrans really get on top of it quickly enough. So MC's going for 2 Oracles, and the big tell here as far as it being a Stargate all-in is if they produce more than 2 Oracles, I'd say, because 2 is pretty normal. Whoops, I hit cancel. 2 is pretty normal here because you usually would send 1 in if you're Protoss, and you'd keep 1 back at home. But if they continue Stargate production, this is when it gets super weird and you have to start thinking like, wait, why would they do this? If it's just going to be a big 2 base Stargate all in, then that's something I definitely need to understand how to react to. So MMA, trying to chase out these oracles, trying not to take too much damage. More importantly, we kind of need to see what he knows, and he just knows that there's an expansion here. But eventually he'll need to scan and see what else MC is making so he can prepare properly against this. So MC just trying to keep MMA back in his base for a little while he's pretty weak to a lot of attacks back at his own. That's kind of the whole point of the Oracle openers. And he's just continuing to build up here. We're seeing he's just continuing Void Ray production. And if you were able to scout this, this would be a pretty big red flag because Void Rays in the longer game are not good against Terran, considering Stim Marines kind of just eat them up without much trouble. So MC's starting to congregate down here, and the most important thing to see is that he did have an SCV out here, so he could start to see this develop. The Oracles were out here. There's not really much of a reason for them to be out here. Maybe he could start to put this together and think, okay, this is starting to make a little bit more sense. If I could scan, maybe see a Stargate, maybe see the extra Void Rays and stuff, that would kind of put this all in perspective. And look at this, he definitely knows, because he's adding on a lot of bunkers. So what we're going to get to eventually is that a lot of bunkers is basically going to be your best defense against a lot of things, because most of the time you're going to be making a lot of Marines anyway. And these Marines die if somebody sneezes on them the wrong way. Like, they are very, very fragile. So the idea with the bunkers, of course, is that the Marines basically have 400 health before you can even start to access them with this type of play. So tons and tons of bunkers with a lot of Marines in there basically assures that you have a lot of damage output and a lot of health, because you can keep your Marines alive, and of course you can pull your SCVs and repair and stuff. But also, against these tech-based all-ins, mixing in things like mines, maybe turrets here on the front line are all going to be really good options as far as holding stuff like this. So you definitely do need to understand what's going on and start to adjust as quickly as possible. You can see as soon as he knows what's happening, he produces this mine. And that's also a good idea, or rather a good point as to why opening up with mines earlier rather than later as a defensive type of unit is a good play as well. So what we're going to see is MMA is trying desperately to get these bunkers up right now. Now that he's kind of figured out what's going on, MC's moving across the map, going to start getting into position. And what you probably want to do most of the time with these SCVs, just have them ready to repair. Just kind of spread them out a little bit, and as soon as the bunker starts to get attacked, try to repair them as fast as you can. Notice how he keeps putting on layers upon layers of bunkers. This is his 5th bunker out the front line, and that's not anywhere near overkill if you're planning on trying to hold a big attack like this. By the way, this doesn't specifically have to only apply to Void Ray plays. This could also apply to Immortal plays, considering they both have the same role and roughly the same range and the same strengths and weaknesses in this type of attack that Immortals do. So the idea is that the Immortals or Void Rays or whatever it is going to be focused on breaking your bunkers down as fast as possible, considering the Void Rays can use their overcharge to get extra damage against armored units. So both of them do have the same application, and holding them is basically the same. It's just a lot of Marines. If you have stim done, that's going to be great, because you can even stim the Marines that are inside the bunker. So you can see there is the option if you select your bunker. And of course, repairing through it and just having enough stuff here to hold is going to be the biggest key as far as defending things like this. So MMA trying to get into his later stages of tech. First mine starts to march its way down here. And the mines are really great against this, because if they get a good hit on something that's really valuable, like say a big pack of Zealots, that's 4 or 5 Zealots that are basically weakened or dead enough to kill right away, and they won't even matter in the fight. So things like mines are an excellent way to hold off any type of 2-base play from Protoss. You can see this is annoying. He does lose his mine right away to the Revelation and to the Void Rays, but this is at least giving him some time. He now has his 5th bunker up. He has a turret mixed in there as well. You'd even like to see a reactor, and yeah, that's what he's building right now, on the factory, so he can start dumping out mines a lot quicker. And of course, if you ever need to know what's going on, there's a cool little play that MMA did, is you can just stim a Marine and run it down there and see what's still there. If his whole army is still there, then you know that, okay, I still need to stay in my base for as long as he's just sitting there. And if he sits here for long enough, eventually you might get to a point where you can stim down there, or maybe you can just counter drop when your medevacs start to surface. So there's a lot of different ways you can eventually break this, but for the most part, the Protoss will be trying to end the game by this stage, and they'll usually just attack in here. So note that he's pulling more SCVs to get ready to repair. He's thinking these 2 bunkers are probably the most vulnerable to be targeted down right away by the Void Rays, so if I just have these around ready to repair, that'll be great. You can put these on auto repair. You can see that's what he has selected here on his SCVs, so you can continue to repair the bunker. Otherwise, you'd have to click over and over, since the bunker would go back up to full health and then back down. And now that this is back up here, he's got everything stimmed. He even stimmed his Marines in the bunkers. You can see them, they are hurt. And just targeting down as much as you can and as fast as you can is going to be ideal, especially if you can nab these tech units. Since this Void Ray is so close, if you could just grab a pack of Marines and target the Void Ray, then that's going to be great, because those are the reason that these pushes really work, is because they can break your bunkers with these armored damaging units. So killing the Void Rays or killing the Immortals or whatever it is going to be your best way to hold this. Secondarily, there's just going to be a lot of stuff here, and that's why the mines are good, to just land hits on these Zealots and Stalkers and whatnot. But either way, the tech units are the most important thing. So just a lot of junk going on here, but the bottom line is that he is trying to repair his bunkers. He's trying to keep his Marines alive for as long as possible. And eventually, if you can break down their support, and they're just left with stuff like this, only a few Stalkers, only a few Void Rays or Immortals, doesn't matter what it is, and some sentries with no energy, that's the point where you can think about dumping your bunkers, pulling your SCVs, and just attacking his army as hard as you can. Because if you win this fight, your tech is way better. They're going to be totally reset, and it's not like they can continue to make Void Rays throughout the game very reliably. So once you realize that he's basically broken as far as his attack isn't going to work anymore, that's when you need to get super aggressive, dump your bunkers, stim everything, pull your SCVs, and just attack his army as hard as you can, and chase him all the way back to his base, so that you can, maybe not with your SCVs all the way back to the base, just initially to absorb some damage from these Stalkers and sentries. But yeah, just follow him as far as you can go and try to chase that army down. Don't let him just walk away and keep rebuilding, because that would be giving away a big advantage that you had. So, gonna see MMA hold this off really well. He did lose 2 bunkers, quite a bit of Marines. This is gonna go on for a little while longer, so it's not like just because you held the first push that it's over. But now the mines are gonna start getting mixed in. The Marines have stim. There's a medevac here. These Void Rays are gonna get punished harder and harder for trying to be adventurous. And the more mines, the more bunkers, the more tech that he has overall, the better he's going to do against these kinds of things. MMA is going to kind of pointlessly try to follow this up over and over, considering he is very much all in. By this point, Protoss would really need to be on higher stages of tech. So this is just a matter of time before MC attacks in here once again, and it's up to MMA once again to hold. By the way, like I was mentioning, one good way to eventually break these type of contains / all-in types of plays is to just send out 1 medevac worth of units, and either they're going to have to spend weapons back home to deal with that, or they're going to, have to recall and give up all their position, which means that you can go ahead and take that. So, going to see this going for a little while longer, and MC even adding on more Void Rays. This is a really very weird build. He's trying to track down this medevac right now, and by the way, considering there's no support here for the rest of these units, you could try and run down here and deal with this, but there are a lot of force fields. You do need to be a little bit careful. Either way, this is still not a bad play, just to verify that there's no transition or anything going on, and he's still forcing units to come back home to buy him a little more time. By the time the Void Rays get back, maybe he has a couple extra pairs of mines, or maybe he finished an upgrade, which he just did finish +1 armor. So a lot of good ways just to stall out, get some good tactics in there. And it's worth spending that drop just to make that happen. He didn't lose everything in the drop, by the way. He's still trying to be annoying, and he can just run them back anyway. So MMA is doing a really good job here of just being patient, and he's still sending out more and more drops as he realizes that the mines are just going to get stronger and stronger as time goes on here. And eventually MC is going to attack up here, and if he attacks into a big minefield, especially now that the mines have been changed, then that's going to definitely change a lot. So MC is just getting ready here, and this should be pretty simple for MMA. Just have his SCVs on auto repair, or ready to repair whatever bunker he wants. And now that everything comes up here, mines blow up basically a whole line of Zealots. He is pulling SCVs right now. Mines still going off. Void Rays are exposed, and it's just up to MMA to keep his bunkers alive, keep his units alive the best he can. But there's not a whole lot that MC can do from this point if he loses this attack. And you can see his Void Rays start to fall, his gateway units start to fall. Yeah, MMA is starting to get pushed back here, but there's no detection for MC, so if MMA can kind of just keep him over this minefield, he can keep reinforcing. He brought his 2 drops back. And eventually, if you're able to defend for long enough, you will have a much more powerful army. And you can see as soon as he realizes that, he's like, alright, it's time to go. It's time to attack him, and let's see what we can do with this. And MC should basically know by now that he's dead. Yeah, he just says, I'm dead. So, yeah. Not a lot of cheeses are going to happen in this matchup typically, but those are some definite possibilities that we haven't covered yet. Obviously, blink is a big concern, so you can go back and watch the blink video if you have trouble with that. But other than that, I think that's going to be pretty much it. So if you have any questions, post them down in the comments. I'm usually pretty good about getting out to them. Otherwise, I will see you for more videos very soon, so take it easy.